Welcome to MirrorFly, a unified communications product for real-time chat, audio, and video calls SDK. In this video, I shall be walking you through integrating chat in 20 minutes. Let us start with the Chat SDK integrations. Now, moving on to the pod setup. Copy the Chat SDK pod code to add into your pod setup. If you have not initiated any pods project before, then you would need to initiate it by executing pod init command. Add the required pods code to the pod file that was copied for the SDK to execute the process perfectly. Then copy the hook code and paste it in the pod terminal to complete pod setup. This hook code to be added at the end of the pod file. Run pod install command to complete the pod setup successfully. Now the pod setup is completed successfully. In this video, we shall deep dive to see how to send and receive the first chat message for the iOS platform. You may also use our pre-built sample application available in GitHub. Download today to explore more about the real-time chat and call features. The fastest way to build your app's UI with MirrorFly Chat SDK. I would suggest you to watch this full video before you explore the sample app. You should also be aware of some of the basic system requirements to start working on the iOS chat integrations. Before moving into the integration part, you need to know about the unique SDK license key to initiate chat. You can get a valid license key from the MirrorFly user console or dashboard overview page. You would need to be a registered user to access the console. Since I'm already a registered user, logging into the MirrorFly user console to find my unique license key on the overview page. This license key is used to initiate the chat and connect to the MirrorFly service. I could also get access to the sample project source code and SDK files. API credentials in the same overview page to access Sandbox to explore chat integrations. Moving on to step 3 in Chat SDK integration. Once the pod setup is completed, open the XC workspace and open project settings to add a few more options. In the project, under the build setting, you can search for bitcode, and this has to be disabled. Bitcode is by default enabled on Xcode project settings. It is safe to turn it off now. We have added a few libraries in the SDK, and to get these compiled, bitcode has to be turned off in the project. Moving on to step 4 in the integration process. We need to enable a few more capabilities in your project. A capability grants your app access to an app service that Apple provides. Go to Target, open signing capabilities, and enable app groups and add it with the bundle ID. We have added our demo project ID to run this integration. You need to change it according to your project and bundle ID. Now go to the background mode and enable the following modes. To configure your app to allow background tasks, enable the background capabilities that you need: audio, AirPlay, picture, and in-picture. With this mode enabled and your audio session configured, your app is ready to play background audio. Background fetch that allows an app to fetch new data or perform other tasks in the background when the app is not actively being used. Remote notifications to provide up-to-date information of your app, even when the app is not running. Register with Apple Push Notification Service, happens, to send and receive incoming remote notifications. For app groups, enter in the container ID. You may use the app name accordingly. Xcode automatically selects the new app group in the app groups list. This selection indicates that your app is now a member of that app group. For background capabilities, choosing in the required background modes. Moving on to configuring the server details in the Chat SDK. You can copy the license key from the MirrorFly console overview page and paste it on the code under the license key. Now we have the Sandbox API base URL. You can replace it with your dedicated API base URL, which you can get it from the console after completing server configuration. Copy the code and paste it in the project. Before that, in the app delegate class, add import UIKit and MirrorFly SDK libraries to call our pre-built SDK functions. Container ID is an optional field now. If you want to add a container ID, then use app group ID. Moving on to Initialize chatSDK. To start using the SDK, there are a few basic pieces of data that must be made available for the SDK to function perfectly. We utilize the usage of the chatSDK builder class, making the data available for SDK. In your project, you must use the app delegate class within the did finish launching with options method and also provide the required data to build the chatSDK builder. Copy the chatSDK.builder code and paste it in the project. As I said, the container ID is an optional field and it is the app group ID. Let us also understand the builder call functions. Set license key function is to apply your license key and to proceed with the registration. Is trial license is to get the status of license key. Set domain base URL is to make API calls. Build and initialize is to initialize the chat configuration. Now moving on to user registration. We shall register a new user using this method. This method is used to register a new user. It will take care of both sandbox mode registration as well as live mode registration based on his trial license provided in the chatSDK.builder class. Import UIKit and MirrorFly SDK libraries. Make sure that you have called the registration method only once in an application. Try to add a registration function inside the button action to avoid error status or delayed responses. User ID must be a unique string or integer, and please don't use any special characters. During the registration, Register API Service method will accept the additional parameters that is required for notification processing on the server, such as the Apple Push Notification Service Device Token, VoIP Device Token, and user type. Metadata as an optional param to provide metadata of user. You can handle these optional parameters in the app according to your app need and services. Appends is used to send and receive push notification alerts, as said earlier. You can refer to the MirrorFly docs for more information in handling the additional parameters in your app. If you are using the call feature, then you would enable VoIP Device Token. You also need to attach the certificates to enable these alert services. Appends and VoIP certificates needs to be added to your server configuration section in the user console to enable push notifications. Now moving on to connecting to our chat server. Once registration is successful, chatSDK automatically attempts to connect to the chat server, and chatSDK also observes the changes in application state, and accordingly it will try to connect and disconnect the chat server. Whenever planning to send a message using the chatSDK, first have to establish a connection to the chat server using chatmanager.connect method. After registration success, making a connection is only preferable. Observe connection events. The connection status can be observed and tracked by confirming the connection event delegate method. Copy the chat manager code and paste it in the project. To do that, you need to set delegate in your view controller's view did appear method. Once this connection event delegate has been set, we'll be able to receive the connection status in the delegate method. You can add a print statement to check the connection status of unconnected method. Now moving on to send a one-to-one message. MirrorFly provides you to send the text message to other participants by using Send Text Message method, which is wrapped with MirrorFly SDK. The send text message accepts 3 major arguments, which is to JID text, reply message ID. Open your Xcode project, choose the respective view controller, paste the copied code. To JID refers to the end user ID, which you will get from the getJID method by passing the username. Text represents which message the user wants to send to another user. Reply message ID is the optional parameter, which is used for sending the reply message for any other previous messages. Send text message has provided the callback mechanism after executing the method, which is success and failure. Success callback indicates that the message is sent to the participant, so the sender will update their UI respectively. Failure callback indicates that the message is not sent to the participant. These are the super easy methods for sending any text messages with the above criteria. Here we have created a separate method for send text message in the view controller and placed the copied message from the document. We also created the button action where the send text message was invoked. Let's move on to the receiver part. In order to receive the message in your view controller, we have provided the message event delegates class. This will enable you to listen to all incoming messages and the related events. In the document, we refer to the separate page for message event delegate for more information. Add the copied code to call on message received. In your view controller class, there is an override method called viewWillAppear. The Xcode itself suggests you add all the relevant methods that you have to listen for the incoming message events, where you can place our message event delegate as self. For the message response, we have just add one sample to handle the message event. Among the many events, you could find the method called onMessageReceived, where you receive all your incoming messages. Rest of the methods and explanation, kindly refer to the document page for message event delegates class. It is all set now, and I hope you were able to follow all the steps we have discussed in the video. Let us now check how the message is sent and received using a simulator for a better understanding. To start with, first register the users. This is a simple demo on sending a sample chat message to another user and how the other user receives it. Sender in place on the left and the receiver mobile screen is placed on the right. Sender is sending a text message to the other receiver. Receiver will receive a push notification about this new message being received. The receiver has received the message and is able to reply to the sender accordingly. Hope this video is helpful for you in your MirrorFly Chat SDK integrations. MirrorFly Chat SDK and UI Kit gives you a comprehensive real-time chat experience and simplifies your chat design needs. Check out our documentation page for more such tutorials that would ease your integration setup. We have a dedicated team to assist you with your questions and help you pass through the blockers with ease. Thank you, and have a good day.